welcome to Central Life Online. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today. We've got an incredible service for you. We've got a life story, some worship, and we're going to be heading into a time of prayer. And a word of warning, this life story is a bit emotional, so have some tissues nearby. We're going to be hearing from May and Vicky. Hopefully you know Vicky by now. She's been on Central Life before and she's a member of our church leadership team. May West is her mother-in-law and she's a legend of this house, so enjoy.
Okay, May, how are you this evening?
Really well, thank you. Had a good day.
Good, and how have you been coping with lockdown?
Well, life's been really different, but I am surviving, so that's good.
Good, yeah, it's been an interesting kind of time for us all, hasn't it? So this evening, I just wondered if you could start with maybe just giving us an overview of what your childhood was like.
Well, I had the privilege of being brought up in a Christian home. I lived with my mum and dad and my elder sister Grace and my younger brother Alec. My dad was a fisherman, so he was always home at the weekend and that was a special time. Saturday we always did something, maybe went to a park for a picnic, had family time, and then Sunday we went to all the services and I went to the Sunday school at York Street Hall in Peterhead. Okay,
great. So can you just share some of your happiest memories?
Well, I've been a lot of happy days in my life. I can think on the day I got married in 1983, I got married to George Cartney. And then the day my boys were born, my sons David and Andrew and Stephen. And then more recent, the days my grandchildren were born. That's been happy days for me.
Great, that's great. So can you tell us about when, after your childhood, kind of growing up, what, how did you meet George and different things like that?
Well, I started seeing George when I was still at school, and in my teenage years I did my own thing and maybe made my mum and dad be on their knees a lot praying for me. But when I started going with George, I settled down, and after we'd been gone out a while, he started to come to the meetings with me to York Street Hall. And I am so thankful that he asked Jesus into his life. He got saved in that year, and it was really great.
Great. And can you remember when you gave your life to Jesus?
I can remember it clearly, even though it was 50 years ago. I was 6 or 7, and every Sunday I went to the evening service. But this particular week, it was the 12th October, when I was sitting there hearing the gospel story about Jesus going to the cross and dying there for me and paying the price for my sins. That night, I knew I had to ask Jesus into my heart. And at the end of the service, I spoke to the preacher and he read John 3:16 with me. And the words are, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life." And he told me to put my name in the place of whosoever. And that night I asked to be forgiven of my sins and I accepted Jesus into my life. I became a child of God. And it's the most important decision and the best decision I've made in my life.
Brilliant, that's great. So you've shared some happy thoughts and some happy memories and stuff, and just like a quick overview, but was there a day that you can remember that things changed?
Well, my life changed for me drastically in the 6th of May 1988. Yeah. There was a horrific road traffic accident near Aberdeen. And that day I lost my husband George, who was only 27 years old, and then I lost my little boy David, who was only 4 years old. And within a few hours I lost half of my family. And I was left as a single parent to look after my little boy, Andrew, who was only 8 months old. And he'd lost his dad and his brother. Life was different and life was difficult.
Yeah, such a hard time that you went through. Can you just explain and tell us what got you through that? Was there people that surrounded you, or was it your faith? Or can you just explain what helped you to get through that really difficult time?
Well, I proved at that time the faithfulness of my God. He was there with me through a great storm in my life. And even in my darkest days, he carried me through that situation. At church, we sing a song called Remembrance. And there's a verse in it says, "You've been so, so good to me. To think where I would be if not for you." And I am sitting here today because of the goodness of God and because of my faith. If I hadn't my faith, I wouldn't have survived. God gives life meaning. In the chaotic and changeable lives that we lead, he gives life meaning. And he's so dependable. He's been my rock, my anchor. And I have proved all his promises, that he goes before you and he'll never leave you nor forsake you. He's been with me through every day. And I also had a good family network, and they helped me through that time.
That's brilliant. So obviously from when you were young growing up and stuff, you have this image of how life will be. So, life completely changed, and it wasn't what you imagined at all. And what are some of the important lessons that you can maybe share with us that you've learned going through your life, and the hardship and the grief and the sorrow that you've been through? What is something, things like little life lessons that you've learned that you could share with us this evening?
Well, before the accident, my life was really good. Everything was going really well. My husband George was a fisherman, and he was always home at the weekends, which was really great, and it was special family times with my boys. Just before the accident, David was enrolled to go to a primary school, and we were building a new house, and we were looking forward to the move. Our second son, Andrew, came along, and everything was just great. With our plans made for the future. But there's a verse in the Bible, and it's in Proverbs 16, and it says, "In his heart a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps." It also tells us that there's a time to be born and a time to die. And our lives they're like a vapour, and we are not guaranteed tomorrow. And I just think I've got to say that you've got to be ready, because none of us can if it's in front of us. We need to be ready to hear our sins forgiven and to hear a relationship with Jesus. And the only way to do that is through the cross.
Brilliant. Okay, so just to to finish up and to sum up, is there, if anyone's watching this evening, is there a piece of advice, somebody that's maybe watching that's in the middle of a really challenging season, is there a piece of advice that you could give them, you could pass on to them this evening?
Well, I would like to quote the words of Jesus found in Matthew's Gospel, and it's, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." God doesn't want you to struggle on your own. He wants you to surrender to him. And I just want to paint a picture to you, a shepherd on a hillside, looking after his sheep, protecting them, caring for them. And that's what Jesus wants to do with each person listening to this tonight. He is a good shepherd. He wants to take care of you. He wants to lead you and keep you from falling. He wants to carry you close to your heart. He loves you and He wants to be in your life. He wants a personal relationship with you. And can I just encourage you to turn your eyes upon Jesus and to look full in His wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace.
That's brilliant, May. Thank you so much for being open and honest and vulnerable, and just sharing your life story this evening. Thank you.
What an amazing life story from May. As we just heard a story of God's faithfulness, we're going to head into a song called Great Is Your Faithfulness.
Great your faithfulness, O God my Father, O God my friend, your love it never fades, and so I love until the end. When shadows fall, you never change. From age to age, you never change. And great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. Through the years, you've always been there. And great is your love for us, your love for us. Through the years, you've always been there. And great your kindness, God. You are our shelter, our dwelling place, your presence like a fire. Hope for tomorrow, strength for today. When shadows fall, you never change. From age to age, you never change. And great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. Through the years, you've always been there. And great is your love for us, your love for us. Through the years, you've always been there. 'Cause we will stand upon your promises. We're strong because our hope is in you. We will run, we will run, we will run. We belong, we belong, we belong to you. We belong to you. We will stand, we will stand, we will stand upon your promises. We're strong because our hope is in you. We will run, we will run, we will run. We belong, we belong, we belong to you. We belong to you. And great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. Through the years, you've always been there. And great is your love for us, your love for us.
That was a great time of worship there. If you remember 2 weeks ago, me and Victor had a conversation across the table from each other, and we were speaking about purpose, but we also spoke about the little deliveries that I had been getting during quarantine and the requests that I was giving out. And And I asked for cinnamon buns and I didn't actually get, but last week Ruth Watt graciously came to church and dropped them off. She actually made them herself and they were amazing. So thank you, Ruth, for that. And next week we're going to be coming up with another request, so you'll see that next week. I've been, during quarantine and the duration of this year, I've been reading through the earlier books of the Old Testament, and this week I was reminded of Abraham and this moment where God made Abraham aware of a situation in Sodom and Gomorrah. So it's in Genesis 18, starting at verse 22. Then the Lord said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin is so grievous, that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know." The men turned away and went towards Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in this city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right?" Then the Lord said, "If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake." Then Abraham spoke again, "Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5 people? If I find 45 there," he said, "I will not destroy it." So what we've just read here is a dialogue between God and Abraham. And there's this situation in the city of Sodom, and God makes Abraham aware of his plans to destroy it. And there's almost like this negotiation between friends, or like father and son, where Abraham is talking down the amount of righteous people that can be found. And what is recognized there is a spirit of intercession in Abraham. So he sees the people there, and his love for them cries out, that he cries out to God in intercession. And I love the way he approaches God too. There's humility. He recognizes his limitation as a human, and he recognizes the sovereignty and the power of God. We see it here in verse 27. Then Abraham spoke up again, "Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes." You see, I think it's because of Abraham's boldness and his persistence in seeking God. We read on, and it's almost like a repetition. He keeps going back, and the number drops each time they converse, all the way down to 10. In verse 32 it says, "Then he said, 'May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 people can be found there?' He answered, 'For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it.'" You see, I think it was God's heart that the city of Sodom would be spared. And I think that each time Abraham spoke up with boldness and respect to God, that each time he asked for a new number of righteous people to be found, I can imagine God's smile grew each time. Such was his love for the people of Sodom and his love for Abraham, that he wanted to see the city spared, but he also wanted to see that spirit of intercession drawn out of Abraham. You see, we see two things at play here: love for God and love for people. Abraham had both. He saw the need in Sodom. He saw that someone needed to stand in their behalf. They needed an intercessor. And he recognized God's authority and his own human limitation. And he looked at God with love in his eyes and said, "Spare them." And each time he dropped the number. As we read on in this story, we found out that God found less than 10 righteous people in this city. So the city was not spared. But such was God's grace and mercy that he saved those who were righteous within this city. He took them out and saved them. And so now what we're going to do, because of our love for God and our love for people, we're going to stand and intercede on behalf of others. There's a lot of need out there. There's people losing jobs. There's people with health issues. There's a lot going on. And we're going to bring those requests to the God who we serve, the God who is full of love and compassion. We're going to approach him in reverence and awe, but with boldness and persistence, and cry out to him to change what's going on around us and what's going on in our heart.